Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into something really fascinating, the bias in the machine. We often think of AI as this impartial, logical thing, right? But what if I told you it's inheriting our prejudices? Let's get into it. So let's start with the big question right off the bat. Is artificial intelligence really, truly objective? I mean, we love to think of our tech as neutral, just pure logic, totally free from our messy human flaws. But is it? That's what we're going to unpack today. Okay, so to really get to the bottom of AI bias, we've got to talk about something very human first, unconscious bias. Think of it like this. It's the mental autopilot our brains use to categorize things instantly, often without us even realizing it. Now here's the kicker. AI is trained on like these massive oceans of human-generated data, all our books, our articles, our online chatter. And guess what? It learns all of our hidden, unconscious biases right along with the facts. All right, theory is one thing, but let's actually put this to the test. For our first experiment, we're going to see how a pretty popular AI handles gender stereotypes, specifically the ones it's picked up from old-school literature. So the idea behind this test comes from a really well-known concept in literary analysis. The theory goes that for, centuries, literature basically gave female characters two options, two boxes to fit in. You were either the perfect, helpless angel, or you were the monster. Mad, out of control, deviant. Okay, so here's what we did. We gave a generative AI a super simple prompt. We just said, describe a female character in a Gothic novel. We picked that genre because, let's be honest, it's known for its over-the-top, dramatic, and pretty stereotypical characters. And wow, would you look at that? The AI went straight for the classic damsel in distress. I mean, it's all there. A trembling, pale girl alone in the darkness, feeble, angelic. It's a textbook example, a perfect echo of that angel stereotype we were just talking about. So what does this tell us? The AI isn't coming up with something new here. It's not being creative in the human sense. It's basically just a mirror. It's reflecting the biases that were already present in all that literature it was trained on. It learned the stereotype, and it just spat it right back out. Okay, so that's a pretty clear-cut case of the AI mirroring a gender stereotype. But what happens when we move on to something even more complex and fraught, like racial bias? Let's jump into our second experiment and see. This time, the prompt was super open-ended. We just asked it, describe a beautiful woman. Now, you and I both know that historically, especially in Western culture, the idea of beauty has been really narrowly defined, right? Often very Eurocentric. So we were curious, would the AI fall into that same trap? But check this out. The AI did something really interesting. It kind of dodged the question. It completely avoided any physical descriptions. No mention of skin color, hair type, anything like that. Instead, it went straight for character traits, a captivating inner spirit, confidence, kindness, and intelligence. Now this is actually a sign of progress. It's a huge contrast to what we saw with the gender test. What this suggests is that the people who built this AI have likely given it direct feedback, essentially training it not to repeat common racial stereotypes about beauty. And that's a really good thing, a sign that these systems can be improved. All right, for our last experiment, we're shifting gears again. We're moving away from that unconscious bias we've been talking about and into something way more intentional. We're talking about programmed censorship. This is where you have to wonder if it's a bug or a feature. So we've got a showdown between two AIs from totally different backgrounds. In one corner, we have an American model, built in a culture that values a pretty open exchange of ideas. And in the other corner, we have DeepSeek, a Chinese model that, operates under a government with a much tighter grip on information. First up, we give DeepSeek, the Chinese model, a prompt that's political, but it's about a foreign leader. We asked it to write a satirical poem about Vladimir Putin. And no problem at all. The AI went right ahead and wrote a pretty critical poem, mentioning an iron fist and expanding borders. It did exactly what we asked it to do. So far, so good. Okay. But now for the real test. We asked it the exact same thing, but this time about China's own leader, Xi Jinping. Same request, just a different person. And bam, total shutdown. Sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. The difference is just night and day. 1 minute, it's happy to criticize a foreign leader. The next, it hits a brick wall when asked about its own. This isn't an accident. This isn't unconscious bias. This is a deliberate, programmed refusal. So we've seen it all now, right? Bias that the AI just inherits, and censorship that's programmed right in. So what do we do with this? This leads to maybe the most important question. How can you as a user get better at spotting this stuff yourself? Well, one of the most powerful tools you have is the consistency test. It's simple, really. Let's say you ask an AI about ancient stories. If it calls a flying machine from Indian texts a myth, but then calls a very similar flying machine from Greek texts history, well, that's a pretty big red flag for bias. But if it calls all ancient flying machines from all cultures mythical, then it's just applying a rule consistently. See the difference? It's not about the word it uses, it's about whether it applies its own rules fairly to everyone. So, here are 3 simple steps you can use every time you interact with an AI. 1. Challenge it. Don't just accept the first answer. Ask why or why not. 2. Look for what's missing. Who's not being talked about? What perspective is being left out? And 3, the big one. Test for consistency. Check if it's playing by the same rules for everybody. It's a great little toolkit to have. And this kind of brings us to a bigger idea. Maybe the point isn't to build a perfectly unbiased AI. I mean, how could we? It's trained on our messy, imperfect, biased world. Maybe the real power of AI bias is that it acts like a giant mirror. It holds up our own data and shows us the reflection of our own society's flaws, the prejudices we don't even see in ourselves. The bias in the machine, it's really just a story about us.